Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I think I'm on. Hello, hello. Here we go. I think we're coming into it. Here we go. 1 second, everybody. All right, we're on. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Day 3, Sound and Vision Virtual Sync Conference here presented by the Guild of Music Supervisors Canada. My name is Michael Perlmutter. I am the fortunate president of the Guild of Music Supervisors Canada. I see Liverpool in the house. Excellent. Hello, England. We've had people from all over the world tuning in. So we've been very, very excited. We're so happy everyone's been able to participate. The questions have been amazing. The chat has been amazing. Hopefully everyone's settling into the flow a little bit. We're almost halfway through here. This has been a fantastic week so far. A couple things, of course. Actually, I was just thinking we have like so many different theme songs. We've got RichKidd's music. We've got Riit's beautiful piece of music over the land acknowledgement. Maybe one day we'll have a Guild of Supervisors Canada theme song. We've got some people to write it for us, eh? Don't forget to register for the next couple of days or even for later today at soundandvisioncanada.com. Again, 1 link per day, so you can just stay on. Grab a drink in between sessions or during a session, but make it quick. Try to make everything easy for everybody. Questions, Q&A. If you've got a question, please put it in the Q&A. Again, want to thank our sponsors for making this happen because it would not happen without them. Third Side Music, Arts and Crafts, Simba Music Publishing, Cadence Music, and High Priestess Publishing. Thank you so much. We'll post their sites at some point or in the chat or go look them up when you're done here. And also a quick shout out, very important to Montgomery Sound Streaming Company, who is helping us with all of our tech and doing an extraordinarily great job. And they are based in Vancouver. There's a panel at 6 p.m. called Here's the Brief, breaking down the DoorDash ad. Stick around for that. That should be pretty fantastic. We've got some creatives there. Artist Avaya Mighty is going to be there. It's going to be super cool. And as you know, we are thrilled to present the Sync Conference for free to everybody. And but we are suggesting donations to 2 charitable organizations. Our moderator will give you some more information. And we'll also post the links in the chat. Let me introduce my friend Christine Leslie, who will moderate with these great panelists. The title of this session is A Day in the Life, Advertising and Branded Content. Christine's a music supervisor at Tattoo, Music and Sound. She's a seasoned exec producer and music supervisor specializing in licensing and production for TV, radio, commercials, and long-form entertainment. She's also really funny. No pressure, Christine. With many years experience in the business, she's worked as licensing director and music supervisor on countless commercial productions like Nissan, GM, A&W, Budweiser, TELUS, McDonald's, Best Buy, Virgin Mobile. She's worked on some films and some TV series, being Erica, you may know from CBC a few years back, and some Canadian films called True Love, Jump, and Darling. Christine says she's a proud member of the Canadian Guild of Music Supervisors. And again, she works at Tattoo, Sound, and Music. Live from Toronto, Christine Leslie. Have a good time, guys.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
How's everybody today?
We're doing good. How are you doing?
Good.
Oh, good. Well, I guess before we get started, I thought I would say a few things here and then I'll reintroduce the panel. So first off, Sound and Vision is a free virtual event with suggested donations made to one of these 2 Canadian charities, whom we've partnered with. The first one is Black Youth Helpline. Black Youth Helpline is a registered charitable not-for-profit organization with a vision of productive futures for Canada's children and youth. Their mission is primarily prevention of social, psychological breakdowns in the community through a focus on education, health, and community development. The second charity is Black Mental Health Canada. Black Mental Health Canada is a volunteer nonprofit community-based organization that helps meet the mental health needs of diverse Black communities in Canada. Their mission is to facilitate access to affordable, culturally safe, and affirming mental health services to the Black community through education, advocacy, and provisions of resource. Links to both charities can be found in the chat. We recommend approximately $2 to $5 per panel per workshop. So I don't know if Andrea introduced everyone on our panel, but I will do that now. So first off, we've got Warren Bray. He is music supervisor at Hook Pirate. He's also an artist, musician, and composer. Next, we have Adaline. She's a singer-songwriter, artist, and composer. Next, we have Steve Gadsden. He is an audio director, composer, artist, and president of Tattoo. And then there's me. Michael said I am funny, but I don't know if I am funny.
You are. You're funny.
I'll try and be funny. Anyway, so we're really excited for this panel today.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys are ready, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, so the first question is going out to you, Warren. It's actually two questions. So the first question is, what is the process of music supervision for commercials, in your words?
Right. Well, it's basically, it's very different from TV and film in a lot of ways. It kind of all starts from the company, AKA the client, these companies that we all know. They'll hire an ad agency to do their creative and create all their campaigns. And then those ad agencies will hire us, production companies, whether it's Pirate or Tattoo, that type of thing. And the workflow as a music supervisor is, sometimes it can be, they'll come to us with a song. Hey, we want to use this song, whatever that may be. And we get the rights, we figure out the cost, we quote it, clear it, and then do all the licensing and, put it on air. And then, of course, the other side of things, which happens probably more often, is we have an idea for this commercial. Here are our kind of terms and parameters and how much money we have. What music can you give us that works for that? So it's a lot of sourcing and digging and, providing various options and things like that. Yeah, that's kind of the broad strokes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, how did you become a music super, and what advice do you think you could offer anyone who wants to become a music supervisor?
It was, at first I thought it was kind of just luck, but I've come to believe that luck is just kind of you kind of make all of your decisions that put you in the right place for these things to happen. But it was kind of a stepping stone thing, like, rather than working at clothing stores or things like that when I was younger, I was working in record stores. Then I went to Long & McQuaid, musical instruments, and kind of anything that was music related, as well as I've been playing in bands, since I was a teenager. Actually, Adaline was on one of my band, Grand Analog, one of our last albums. Yeah. So anyway,
great band.
Long story short is that a good friend of mine from another band I used to be in, and another friend from Long & McQuaid when I was working there, both of their best friends worked at Pirate, where I'm currently working. And kind of just through everything that I was doing, I had two people at Pirate saying, hey, our friend's telling me this guy might work for the job. So it's kind of just put yourself in the position where you can get there, like do kind of everything you can that somewhat leads to where you want to go. It's kind of the what I would always recommend.
It's so true, because I said I got into it kind of through luck, but you're right. It's all about being in the business, and that opportunity sometimes presents itself. So
Definitely.
yeah. Okay. This is going to go out to you again, Warren. Are the budgets similar or different in TV and film?
You know what? They're usually a lot higher in commercials, which leads a lot of artists wanting to get into the world. But it's mainly because commercials, when you license, there's a one-time fee up front, and that's it, unless all of those rights get renewed when it expires. Whereas TV and film usually have a smaller budget up front because they have royalties and residual rights that happen as the film or TV show gets syndicated, for example, or the film goes on different streaming platforms and grows and that kind of thing. So the advertising budgets are a lot higher. But at the same time, if you're an indie group, you can't really quote what Fleetwood Mac quotes, that kind of thing. There's a huge gap between those numbers as well.
Adaline, do you find that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because which I'm sure we'll get into, but I kind of have like a twofold experience. I've had my own music licensed for commercials, but then I also work a lot with production houses as a singer, singing ads that the composers in-house are doing. And I would say I've had probably more success in that world, which is, considered an acting job. So there's lots of different ways to get into it, but it really is, having my music licensed for TV, you do see those back end residuals, but really like commercial money is kind of unmatched.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So next question. So I'm going to ask each one of you sort of the same question. What is the importance of negotiating? First of all, in music supervision, Warren, what would you say? Why is it so important?
It just kind of decides whether you kind of land that song for your client. It's kind of I wouldn't say I had a huge negotiation skill before I kind of got into this, but I mean, aside from maybe, bugging my parents or something when I was a kid, like figuring out ways that you can, I guess in licensing, we always try to, for example, I mean, you kind of want to, how do I word this? You don't always want to lay all your cards out right away. Sometimes you'll say a lower number or a higher number for a client to get used to the higher number, and then sometimes you'll get a lower number. Anyway, I'm not really fully making sense, but
no, you are. It as long as you know what the parameters are, the specs you need, you kind of have an idea on, because we've been in the business a long time, how much things cost and how much your client has. So I think it's important to be able to speak to your client when they come to you and they say, okay, we want a Rolling Stones track, and they've only got a $10,000 budget. So you have to tell them that, no, you won't be able to get Rolling Stones, but we have some indie artists here that are in that within your budget, and we can try and make that work. So I think it's important to make sure your clients understand the value of music, and also the fan base of your artist. And it's a bit of an education for your clients, and it's also a bit of an education for the artist as well. Some of the artists that don't have representation that understands that negotiation. So I think it's also it's just good to understand the value of the music. So yeah, you agree with that. Now, Steve, what about the negotiation when it comes to original music? What are some of the things with clients when they come to you, they want an original track, and obviously it's less money than sometimes when you go to license a track.
Yes.
So, what would
for
you
sure.
say?
Always with composing, we're trying to find a good balance between each of those things. It's trying to be open to the opportunity and what's coming down the line. A lot of the time we're staying in an area roughly of whatever we have to go in. There's sort of a standard sort of space to be in. And I will talk to each of the composers that I'm working with of going, they only have this. Are you willing to do it for this amount? And then bashing between. And a lot of the time it's making the call of how much time and energy needs to go into it for you to be able to be participating in that. Or just the opportunity. It's the chance to go, okay, I need to, have this relationship, get something happening. I can bash this up pretty quick and get this together. And then just playing that back and forth. And we trying to give the clients a lot of the time good value for it. But again, being very careful not to devalue what it is that we're doing. But you need a lot of the time making that customized scored piece, even if it is supposed to be sort of a song element, right? You need to build in those happy accidents where everything lines up on a tempo map and brings the picture to life. So a lot of the time they need it, and it's just sort of trying to coordinate with them something that's within their budget, at least negotiating, trying to bring them up to something that we can do in a creative space that makes it work outside of that. So it is really important to sort of, and I'll have that with a lot of the composers, if we have a good relationship between and that sort of trust factor that we're taking care of them and making sure that they're going to be, well represented into that and make sure that everybody's getting their due. But, if there's any kind of leeway in between and what they're willing to do for that.
And Adaline, it's important for you to kind of know what your budget is, or when somebody comes to you and asks you to write something, it's kind of important for you to know what the budget is and opportunities. So what's it like for you on your end to negotiate with somebody like Warren or Steve?
Yeah, I actually find him very rarely negotiating on my own behalf. So either it'll be because I have like my publisher will do that for me. I also have some direct relationships with music supervisors, like someone like Warren, who I trust. And I just know that Warren will get me the money he can. So I'm not necessarily playing hardball with Warren, although that sounds fun. we could try that. Let's try that next time.
Yeah.
But if it's like, and then if I'm working with an indie film, I have the sliding scale, I would say, of budgets. But to be honest, I'm not often, especially when I'm, if I'm working with like a tattoo as a composer or as a vocalist, at that point, we're getting into like union scales, and then I'm not actually negotiating much at all.
Yeah, but it's also helpful to know how much you're getting before.
If I'm getting like $10, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Yeah.
Unless it's a PSA.
Yeah, or I probably just trust way too much. So that could be that too.
There's it kind of shows like how many levels of negotiation there are too. Like there's tons of different ones happening. There's situations where all three of our world with Steve, myself, and Adaline will meet where I might be licensing the publishing of a song, and a composer like Steve would be making a new version of it. And then he might call up Adaline to do the vocal on it. And there's just so many different things that you kind of have to know how much money you can get from the client.
We should do that, by the way.
It's true.
After this.
Yeah.
I'm in, let's do it. But you did say that like the union elements do give you a good framework to understand levels and where, it gives you at least a baseline to start going up or down from.
Yeah, where you start. Yeah. All right, next question. What are some of the unique challenges, Warren? What would you say in deadlines and so on?
One of I would say the most unique challenge in advertising is sometimes egos, which is, Christine, I think your laugh says you know what I mean, but
100%.
It's kind of, there's sort of this chain of people that you deliver the music or your quote or whatever it might be up to before it gets to, let's say, the advertiser, the actual client. And, I might give, let's say, the advertising agency 15 to 20 tracks, but they might only get 3 to their client. And then the client thinks everybody's doing a bad job because there isn't enough songs, and the agency didn't think the other songs were good enough. And, sometimes we end up going through, 4 to 5 rounds of music ideally not. One or two is usually standard, but yeah, there's a lot of managing expectations and kind of dealing with creatives' egos.
Mhm.
Not that it's a bad thing. We all have ego to some
No.
degree.
It's true. Well, I
Yeah.
think the reason why agencies they go to you and ask you to do a project is because they like your taste in music. So that's kind of important. And even though they do shortlist and only the 25 tracks you gave them, only 3 of them go through to the client. So they're not always exactly what you recommend. I mean, they're in the list of songs that you like, but they might not be in the top 3. So that is definitely a challenge. So Steve, when it comes to original music, what are some of the unique challenges that you have when you're presenting to client?
There is a huge amount of original.
I've been there with you on all those too.
Well, I mean, it's all right across the board. It's their unique challenges. You're dealing with sometimes if it's an advertising agency thing, you're dealing with people that are not musicians, that are just trying to convey a conversation. So finding a big part of my job is just being able to interpret what they're asking for and try to bring that through into a musical sense. I've always found, in my experience, the best way to do that is to talk on an emotive element. So even if regardless of the music, regardless if we're doing a song or if we're doing a score, anything of anybody can tell me, what am I supposed to be feeling as this goes by? And if they can tell me even in those terms, at this section, we need to be happy, we need to be confused, we need to be resolved. They can always tell you on those things. And then I can give them a palette of how I need to accomplish that. If I need to use a death metal band to make all that work, great. If I need to, if it can be an orchestra, wonderful. That seems to be the biggest thing, is getting through those communication barriers. And then for me, being able to then turn it around to a musician and break that down into the musical brief. Again, from a musician, the more that I can tell them specifically where it is that you want to go. You don't want to limit them creatively, but they need a clean shot of knowing exactly what do I need to hit, which posts are important, because not all of it's going to work, especially in a commercial field where everything's flying through 1,000,000 miles an hour and the editor's not necessarily sticking to a tempo map as he should be. And you're trying to hit all of these other things and going, how many 2/4 bars can I stick in this thing? But that's making sure that I can make that smooth out this process in between and communicate clearly to a composer I'm working with or myself of how to make that together.
Yeah, good points.
So I can keep going on.
I know you can. I'm right there with you.
Having people sign off on stuff and then showing up and going, I never approved that track, and having to write it on the fly. That's, that still happens too.
That does still happen. So the next question is for you, Adaline. Who are the people that you have established relationships with? Who are your clients?
Well, I would say in the commercial world, I don't often deal with clients at all. So I would be dealing with like music houses. And then of course, supervisors at the houses that I pitch my own original music to. But I would say how I got all started, actually, I think is similar with Warren. I got a call, I think it was 2009, from Brendan Quinn, over at Pirate at the time.
Yeah.
And he was trying to license one of my tracks for a commercial. And of course, that's the call every artist dreams of. And the budget was amazing. And so I was young and very eager and hired a string section and a horn section. I laugh now because I would never do that now, to rework my song for this commercial. And it didn't go through, but I remember Brendan saying, I lived in Vancouver. He was like, if you ever move to Toronto, I will take care of you. And he did. It's like, as soon as I moved to Toronto, he was bringing me in. I was working with him and David Arcus all the time, who I did Lily and the Snowman with, and really like started opening those doors. And then it was just a matter of, going to parties, meeting the Eggplant guys over at that bar near their place. Lots of late nights and bottles of wine. And I don't know, I think it's just, getting, obviously being good and committed to excellence, and then just networking is a huge part of it. And then the rest becomes a bit of word of mouth.
Yeah, networking for sure, and also your talent. Your talent will always show through once you've met somebody, and then you wow them with your.
And to what we talked about earlier, the cooperative element, the more of that, the better. Like everybody's trying to work to another end, you know, you go at the door and see what we can put together, right? That's
and
goes very far.
And honestly, as a singer, when I'm doing commercials, I really get to tap into different sides of my artistry. You know, like from day to day, I'm doing like musical theater, or then I'm doing, you know, things that I don't do in my own music. And that really allows there to be like that, you really let go of that preciousness that you often have when you're, you know, writing your own record. And it's so fun. I think there's just a lot of freedom in being able to put a different hat on for the day and, you know, break into like a 1940s like sort of vibe, and I think that's what keeps it, because it is voice acting. Yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah, good point. You're right. You just got to let go of being precious. So, yeah. All right. So next question to you, Warren, is what's the difference between Canada and the US when it comes to commercials?
A big difference in money.
Huge.
You know, I mean, I don't really know how, in a way. I guess it's just mainly the companies that are hiring the ad agencies, you know, the big ones, whether it's Amazon or whoever, just has a lot of money in the US, probably more than they have in Canada. So it's probably just a reflection of that. Maybe I'm missing something else in that, but yeah, the budgets can sometimes be, I wouldn't say double, sometimes close than what Canada is. So. Yeah, and I mean, especially when we're licensing, anytime I'm licensing, like, let's say a big song, like I mentioned Fleetwood Mac earlier, I licensed Go Your Own Way recently for Mazda.
Oh, that's you. Good job.
Yeah, and it was, yeah, we did a cover. And didn't you pitch on one of those, Adaline?
You can go the Fleetwood Mac. I got it. The Mazda one.
Yeah.
That's me at the end.
Oh, fantastic. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
But yeah, I mean, that, for example, I think the publishing was something, it was kind of a short run. I think it was only, I can't remember if it was 3 months or 6 months, but it was still 150,000 for the publishing. And Fleetwood Mac can charge those big numbers. Like even Motown artists and like really well-known songs might only charge that for a year, maybe less. But in the US, you might get 200,000 and 300,000. So it's quite a big difference in the US.
Yeah. Steve, what's your experience with the US when it comes to, I guess, original music? And
it's a much bigger market, obviously, marketplace. They have so much more riding on it. It's running in so many other places. So it naturally is going to take a little bit more of a cost to pull that together. Although it's interesting because sometimes they balance out, because we're not collecting for commercial element in Canada, we're not collecting any kind of ASCAP, so
the royalties,
royalties aren't coming through, and you're able to pick that up anywhere else in the world. So when things are rushing through there, that can definitely balance out some of the cost, especially when you're negotiating through and go, okay, they have this much to create it, but you're going to collect a lot on the back end. In Canada, you're just getting whatever you're getting paid for in the first place, and that's it. So that's sort of a big change. Although, I mean, some of the lower level, smaller market American stuff is not as gigantic as we see. You know, we're sort of relating it to New York or Chicago, and when you're getting jobs in from that, and you're working for a world thing, yeah, it's on a much bigger scale. But yeah, there are smaller market elements that are coming up from the States and that are now looking towards Canada a lot, just even with the dollar, and now these, you know, borders don't mean much. So you know, I'm finding a lot more interest coming from the States and wanting to see, you know, looking at our reels and wanting to work with us. A lot of the time, it's actually just happened because of happenstance. They're up here shooting, and they're like, we need Canadian connection. You know, Tattoo, we have 2 locations and a lot of studio in that. We've been opened up to some opportunities just because they're using our spaces to shoot, using the studio to shoot a Netflix show, and suddenly we're connecting through and go, what do you guys do here? And finding out, suddenly you get connected in that way. So that's been an interesting thing. We have a unique, being Canadian, and for everybody watching this from that, we have a unique connection with that. Now, massive amounts of talent and a small dollar.
Yeah. Adaline, have you had any of your, or had any of the US
Yeah,
agencies licensed your?
that's a
any
good
of that?
day. That's
Yeah.
a good day. Yeah, when you get the call that you have like a national US commercial, I mean, you're popping a bottle of Cristal and like hanging out in a bikini with your friends in the bathtub. Like
Woo.
it's you know, it's just like for me, you know, the big difference with Canada, as far as like, if we're just going to talk as far as being an actress singer on a commercial, is, you know, you kind of get licensed for a period of time. Whereas in the States, they give you some money, royalties, the television stations, for every time it airs. So you get like packages of checks from channels 1 through 30, and then channels 30 through, you know, and they just kind of keep rolling in. But just what everyone said, it's a much bigger market. So the money is just going to be significantly more.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next. Here's an interesting question. Who has the final say on songs being chosen? Warren, what would you say? The client's daughter?
It can be random. It is, of course, usually for commercials, it's the client, the company, whoever their representative is that's working with the ad agency. So, but you know, sometimes it can be someone at the agency. The creative director might really push for something, knowing their client, for example. But at least in advertising, it's mostly the client itself.
Yeah. Steve, is that your experience as well?
Yeah. Not sorry. Give me one more. I was reading through some of your questions on the side there. Give me the question one more time. Sorry.
So, who has the final say when it comes to original music?
Oh yeah. No, it's always in the agency's hands, and even from that, it goes down into the client, and then they're going to tell you. Yeah, exactly. They played it to their neighbor or something, and they said, "Oh, it shouldn't work out." It's never us.
No, I know. We never get the final say.
No.
I mean, we can certainly give our opinion, and I really don't give my opinion anymore until they ask me for it.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're jumping through hoops, but it's always there's always multiple levels of approvals that are going to happen, and even that is tiered in itself. So you might be working with the first sort of group and get everybody set and happy with that, and then it goes up the tier, and then suddenly the entire thing changes. That's happened many times, and
Absolutely.
it happens every stage along the creative process, even from selecting the song and you've got it built in. You finish the final mix, and then that has to go through a whole set of people, and you know, before it even hits the air. So it's constantly a collaborative effort on all of it, and you have to, and that's partially even from a creative point of view, as we were talking about egos and other things, is you have to be willing to go through that and let everybody have their say along the way, and you're constantly jumping, changing things, and adhering and changing some of that vision. You know, you can never be. It's always a house of cards, and they're always reaching for the bottom one all the time. So you got to keep it going throughout that and keep it all together.
Yeah, good point. All right. So, Warren, how many songs do you like to receive from artists or publishers on each project?
You know what? It kind of depends. Sometimes the more the better, but I guess it depends on the scope of the project. Sometimes, you know, if it's a limited budget, you might need more things to work with to find out what's going to fit in there. But if you have a big budget, you know, you can kind of just throw anything at them, at your clients, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, so don't basically limit what you are pitching then, as long as it's within the brief.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm like you. Sometimes I like things off brief. You know, if you're going to send me a song that's off brief, it has to be really fantastic. I don't like to have 20 songs that are completely off brief, but certainly a couple are off brief. That's fine.
That's so true. Sometimes reaching out to publishers or labels when we're sourcing music for a client, sometimes, you know, we'll ask for one thing and we'll get music that sounds because something the opposite almost. But, you know, they have stuff that they're pushing as well. So, you're always kind of figuring out the right way through it. And it's always kind of like, what's the right song for the project, right? It's never really, even if it's good or bad in our own taste. It's just, does it work for the spot, you know?
That's true. So, Steve, okay, let's say we license the publishing and we want to do a cover of a song for a commercial. What's your process when you reach out to composers and singers regarding a brief?
Well, it really depends on how we have to do our own version of it. So it's, you know, we have the right to the music, but we have to be, you know, you're not capturing any kind of performance emulation from there. So a lot of the time we switch, even for singers and element, you're switching genders, you're switching keys in that sense of keeping things as original as possible within there. So a lot of it, again, if it's a reimagining, we're taking the essence of the song, you're trying to boil it down to more of the biggest melodic signatures and elements that are going to keep it as a whole, as a center, and then you build around that. A lot of that just, again, is trying to serve the emotive element of the track. If you're trying to make it cool, if you're trying to just make it a modern take on it, and you're basically like doing a jazz thing, you're quoting the original and bringing it through. And then other times that we're trying to emulate it as close as possible. You want to have almost a lift of the track with a separate singer or something to put in those into that idea. So sometimes it's trying to match it as close as humanly possible legally, and others trying to have an a new imagination of it. So some of the composers that I will approach, a lot of the time when I'm picking people, it's based on their sensibility and their own opinion on stuff, and how they see music. Which falls into a lot of how I pick people when we're briefing things. It's getting the brief and then listening, knowing each one of the guys and what they bring to it and how they look at music. And I want that sensibility brought into this idea.
One important thing to note, though, is when you are doing a cover, yes, you can instrumentally get really close to the original, but this, as you mentioned, the singer, you can't do sound alike. So you got to be careful of that, obviously. So that brings me to you, Adaline. When you are asked to do a cover, what are the kind of things that you need to know from somebody like Steve or Warren?
I find the briefs from music houses to be so thorough. They give lots of references. This kind of like, we like this, but not this, and to me, it's like, it's a bit Frankenstein. You kind of are Frankensteining in a little bit, because, you go, and sometimes this happens actually with music supervisors on TV shows I've worked with, where they're like, hey, we're in the cutting room. They love these 3 songs. Can you find a way to make it sound like all 3? So I think there's this like thing that can happen where you are trying to get the general. I think what Steve is saying is so true. It's the essence. I find often too, because of what you said, Christine, I'm singing a lot of songs that were originally sung by men, right? So they're going to get a female singer on there to give it a different feel. And then that kind of avoids that whole copyright sticky issue. But I do find, before I head into write something, I have a pretty solid idea of what they're looking for. They spell it out pretty clearly.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a fun question. What are some of your unique rewards or stories that you have encountered? Do you want to go first, Adaline?
Sure. Oh, like stories in the commercial world?
Yes, in the commercial world. Sorry, okay. I should have clarified.
No, that's good. Not in my love life, of course, the commercial world. What are we doing here today?
Hey, you're the funny
one. So I would say, one that sticks out to me right away is, of course, like probably my most successful ad, not necessarily financially, but definitely as far as like awareness. And that would be the Lily and the Snowman ad, which was the Cineplex short film of the little girl building the snowman. And I think that story was really cool because it was David Arcus, who was one of the first people I wrote with, and who also, I did a composer residency at the Canadian Film Center, and David did one there. So we had furthered our sort of connection through that. And as usual with this stuff, it's like, it's always, I do probably 3 to 4 pitches a week, and they don't all land, and it's always fun. And it's always like heading over to David's, having a coffee, singing some Genesis, and then going home. And then you just, sit and you think, okay, you let it go. But with this one, it was so cool because when I went in to do the final record, there was like a camera crew there. And I was like, what? And it was like very clear that Cineplex was like, okay, we really want to do a big push with this. And they pushed it out quite seriously over the holiday season. And it just connected with people in such a powerful way. I think it was a very emotional, beautiful spot. I think there was like an element of controversy because the snowman was put in the freezer and people thought maybe that was like inhumane. So there were like lots of different reasons why I think it sort of connected, but it got like 42 million hits online. It was insane. Unfortunately for me, as far as the financial side, it was just a theatrical release so that I didn't get that TV money. And then digital is not really very much money. But the radio, the song went to radio and like tracked on Hot AC for a while. And to this day, even just last week, I've probably had like 200 or 300 people walk down the aisle to that song.
Wow.
You know, and it's just one of those things where you're like, wow, this commercial has connected with people in such an incredible way that it's become a part of their lives. And that's really the most rewarding thing that can happen, I think.
Absolutely.
Especially in ad world, because ad world doesn't always feel like that.
No, that is it, and it's still being referenced, you know, with us, because they want that.
It won some awards, I think, and it just was a special moment in time, and I'm obviously really grateful for it.
That's amazing. Steve, what is your story?
Oh, just something memorable from where should
No, like a fun success story.
Yeah, you told us one the last time we all got together, and I think you should tell that one. The rap one. The rap.
Oh yeah, that one was actually, yeah, that was kind of fun. We were doing it was Budweiser, and that at the time they were doing they put it out, they do like 12 different full up productions for the Super Bowl, and they would eventually get all of these completely done spots and then decide what one or two were going to make it to the Super Bowl. So we were given one which was the guy had grills, so it had this guy at the front who was selling the idea of grills. He wanted to sell you these inserts for your teeth, and if you won this thing, you would get a 6-pack of Bud Light. And then it cuts, and then we need to have some music for a montage of all this like Pleasantville, white picket fence people, all looking very prim and proper, and on all this done like 1950s with these big gold grills in their face. Of course, we got this brief on a Friday, and we had to present it Monday morning. So we were like, okay, well, let's get to it. We started building the track, and we were really kind of stuck. It was the weekend and trying to find someone to come in and rap and pull on this piece. And actually, our receptionist at the time, Janelle, was an actress, and she was also an actor, and she was also sang a little bit on the side. And we're going to get her to do it, but it needed to be a 2-part call and answer sort of piece. She's like, oh, my friend's trying to get into being a rapper. He's an actor. He was on Degrassi with me. He wants to get into rapping. Bring him in. So we're like, yeah, okay, bring him in. We'll give it a shot on the weekend. It was like a Sunday at this time, like 3 p.m. And we laid down this track. It was fantastic, great, really easy guys to work with. We worked really wonderfully, and presented the whole thing, and it went off pretty well. And the guy that she brought in was Drake. Before he was Drake, he was Aubrey. He was just
So Aubrey came in.
her buddy Aubrey, and it was, yeah, that was before he was Drake.
That's fantastic. Warren, what about you? Do you have a fabulous story?
You know, I wouldn't say fabulous, but I was just trying to think of a few. Like there can be some things where some friends of mine play in a group called Wildlife. They're a pretty big alternative band, but they, at the time when I did this license for them, I think they only had 1 record, and their second one was just coming out, and I think they have 3 or 4 now. But and funny enough, an old friend of mine is now playing guitar in the band. But anyway, I just had some connections with those guys over the years, and I was able to get one of their songs before their second album came out on a big Corona spot. And it was just kind of neat. Like, it gave them a lot of money to sort of go on the road and do all the things bands need to do. And They also got flown to Hawaii by Corona, like played some shows out there. So just got like a really nice kickstart from that. But and then aside from that, like there's just some other cool stories. Like we were working on this GoDaddy commercial at Pirate, and Norman Powell from the Raptors came in and was in the studios, and you know, we all got pictures.
He played the piano. Is that one?
Yeah.
It's a great spot.
So, you know, just random stuff like that. But
I had an experience. I worked on Joe Fresh for a little while, and it's not the Joe Fresh story. The David Bowie one. This is another one. So anyway, what happened is the client came with an advertising emergency spot with, we had to find a song and license it pretty much in a day. Yeah, you know, an advertising emergency. Yeah. Oh my God, life is going to die if we can't find this song. Anyway, so I went to my library of songs and I had this folder of dance songs. Anyway, Joe Fresh is an apparel company. And basically the spots are usually models on a runway kind of, you know, dancing in Joe Fresh clothing. So I go to my folder, I find this song that somebody had pitched me years ago. And I sent it to my client. I said, I've been dying to license this song. The artist is from Sweden. I just love this song. I don't know the artist at all. So sure enough, client loved it. That rarely happens, you know, when you send a song and they love it. Usually you have to send 20 or 2 rounds of 20. Anyway, they loved it. It went on air, and then they wanted to do a second cycle. So they paid the same amount plus 15% for the second cycle. And that was pretty much it until a year later, the publisher who came, he's from New York, came to Toronto, and he was adamant about coming to see me. And so he comes to my office and he's bearing gifts, and I'm like, what, like, why? You know, I had licensed this track a year ago. It was pretty good money, but it wasn't huge. And he said, you know, Anna, the artist, really wanted to be here. She really wanted to meet you, but you know, she was back in Sweden. She couldn't get a flight to Canada. I thought, well, that's pretty large. Why would she want to fly all the way to meet me? Well, it turns out what she did with the money was she bought this small little church in her hometown, and she turned it into a recording studio. So all of the artists in her community could go and record and rehearse there for free and create their art. And it was just such a beautiful thing that she was able to do. And she was so happy about doing that. And she said that I gave her the means to do it. And it's like, I was so proud of that. And it, you know, something like that, the money can go towards doing some good. I just felt that that was a beautiful thing. So I'm glad she didn't spend that money to come and visit me, mind you. But yeah, so that was one of the many rewards that that you get when you license music. So yeah, I thought that was a nice story. Okay, so Adaline, I've got a question for you.
Oh, the way you're saying that sounds scary. Now I'm scared. Okay, what is it?
What was your first sync license? Do you remember?
For
commercial. Yes.
For a commercial?
Yes, for a commercial.
What was my first sync license for a commercial? I'm showing my age right now. I'm like, oh, go back in the vault from 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Because you've had so many.
I know, I'm coming across as insanely egotistical right now. I'm like, I don't remember that. You know what's funny?
You always remember your first in everything.
Well, you know what's the reason why I'm having a hard time remembering is because my first syncs really happened in TV. And I'm trying, and those were the moments where I was like, like I remember my first sync, like big syncs. But as far as like the commercial projects, I mean, I guess the ones that really stick out to me are the ones that connected and did really well, because, you know, I did like, you know, you'll do something for a small like Ontario-based company, which is fantastic, but it doesn't stick with you the same way as when you do some of the
land
other
a big one.
commercials. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Christine, isn't that weird that I can't remember?
No, I only ask you that because I remember my first, and that was Happy Birthday.
It was it was a happy birthday cover.
It was the song Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you.
That's good to remember that.
So, and
I
now
think
you
like
can,
Copper Tone or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I think Happy Birthday is public domain, so you don't have to license it anymore.
That's
Perfect.
true. You know, it's funny. The first song I licensed was Walking on Sunshine, Katrina and the Waves. And the funny story about it was for LCBO, which in Canada is our liquor control board. It's where we get our alcohol, because corner stores don't sell it. But the weird thing was
now they do. They didn't.
They're starting to, yeah. They licensed the publishing only, and two of our guys in the studio recreated the song and totally changed it. Like they had someone rapping on it. They had Lisa Lobsinger from Broken Social Scene sing on it. And it was really good, but for whatever reason, I guess because it was my first one, lost in communication, they didn't realize that we weren't using the original master. And literally the day before it's going to air type thing, or the day before client decides, I can't remember, it was kind of like, no, we don't allow re-recorded versions of the song. So
No.
Did you freak out?
Definitely. My partner at Pirate Hook Music, Chris Tate, he and I got on the phone with them, and it's funny, it's with a publisher called Wixon in California.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have dealt with them. They have this spam filter that you have to put in the subject line.
I've said.
Kind of like, hey Chris, we gotta get on the phone with Crayfish. We gotta talk this out. It's their name in the studio. No offense to Wixon, much love to you guys. But anyway, long story short, because Broken Social Scene was involved, Lisa was singing on it. And because of the timeline and everything involved, they just said, you know what, we like it. Let's go for it this one time. But,
oh, amazing.
yeah, it almost, I might not be here now if it didn't happen. Who knows?
Yes, the power of celebrity.
Yeah.
Thank God. But you do have to make those kind of mistakes. It's the only way to kind of learn in this business. I tried to license No Diggity by Blackstreet. And so what happened was I got every piece of 700 pieces of the publishing, except for one, the last 10%, which was Chauncey Black. His management, they couldn't track him down, his publisher. And obviously you need that last little piece. So I did something you're not supposed to do, is I went on Facebook and Facebooked Chauncey directly saying, oh my God, we need this, please. Anyway, I didn't get the publishing or the master. And a year later, Chauncey Black Facebooked me and said, sorry, I've been in jail for a year. Is this still available? You still want a license? No, but I think you probably might need the money. I don't know. Anyway, there's all those crazy stories. Anyway, I'm just looking at the time. We have about 5 more minutes. I have a couple more questions that we can ask, or I can ask. Let's see. How should people submit songs for licensing, Warren? What kind of format do you want?
Do you mean from,
when people email you?
Right.
What are some of the things that you look for when you receive emails?
I would just say anything you prefer. I mean, as long as it's streaming and downloadable. Downloadable, especially because sometimes when we're pitching, we're putting the songs against the picture and we're kind of we might deliver 20 versions of the commercial with different songs on each one, right? Mm-hmm. But the main thing would just be to not put the file attachment, like don't attach your files in the emails. It can really clog up, work email boxes. So anything streaming, downloadable, SoundCloud, Disco, YouTube. I mean, actually YouTube's not the greatest, but anyway,
I'm a huge lover of disco. I'm not sure if everybody is on that, but I also I just think they're so fantastic. And I just love how clean it is and how you can drop down menu if you want an MP3 or a wave. So if artists out there aren't on disco, I would jump on there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Send music to us with disco. Yeah, it's great.
And make sure you put all your information on there in the metadata, because how many times have you tried to, or you found the perfect song and there's no info who the artist is, and it's like, oh, I can't license this. So
that's another reason why disco is so great, because you can just throw the metadata in so easily.
Yeah.
It's like the first platform I've used where I'm not sending something off and wondering if it's going to show up all funny in someone's folder.
All right, well, we're down to the last couple minutes. So the question I want to ask each one of you guys is, do you have any last words of advice for anyone who wants to license their music, become a composer, or submitting, or anything? Adaline, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I think that first impressions are really important. So I would say to, if you have a couple friends in the industry that you can run your demos by, or your songs, or even if you're a composer, maybe your reel, and just get some feedback. I think that's really important. I know everyone's eager to get into it, but you really need to blow people away right away. And that takes time, and it takes training, and there's nothing wrong. I've been rejected a billion times. I'm rejected. I was rejected today. I'm just rejected all the time. But I think that when you just get in the habit of constantly pouring your best into it, and your reel starts to grow. But you kind of have to, I know that someone was asking a question, I think in the Q&A, I noticed sort of this idea of dealing with constantly getting turned away. If you're getting turned away all the time, it could just be what Warren was saying earlier. They're looking for a specific song. It's not that your music isn't good. It's just that it doesn't match. Or it could be that your music's just not there yet. And so I think it's really important to get feedback, and, even from me or something a peer, and then just have honesty. And then when you're ready, you do that. You really do that big push, but you got to be ready.
Absolutely. Steve, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're an artist placing your stuff, obviously it's just connections. You've created your art outside, and that you're making that art for its art's sake, and then you're trying to find other possible uses for it. If you're composing, you're writing specifically for that usage. So really being aware of scoring for picture and what goes into that, really doing your homework on those sort of things, and understanding how to get short melodic phrases, because you're dealing with multiple mediums, your 60s, 30s, 15s, now 6 seconds. So the smaller the melodic structure, the better. It's going to be able to make things more modular and put things together quickly. That stuff is vitally important. So if you know your stuff inside and out, you're able to kind of do that. The other thing is, nowadays you have your demo, when it's putting in, even for presentation, has to sound fantastic. So there's so many guys out there that are really good composers, but they're terrible engineers. So having that one little, at least a really clean stream to go through, you've got a great mic pre, a great A to D sort of situation, even if it's very, just make sure that that's super on it. Great, that you have a great quality piece and it's blended. Take the time to make sure it sounds good before you submit it. And then there was one more. My brain got distracted, so I'll let Warren go.
I was just going to jump on that and say to Steve, I have no problem saying I outsource all the time. Yeah. I am not an engineer, and I never want to be one. So do I lose money sometimes pitching? I do, because I'll send it to someone to mix. But for me, I'd much rather know I'm competing at that level and outsource a bit than to try to get through it on my own and have it be subpar. So I think there's nothing wrong when you're in that learning phase of doing that.
Yeah, it's vitally important. I know even from the old school guys that were amazing writers and can do really good things, but they're used to writing up something and handing sheets to the band to perform, and then you put them in this new world where it's I got to present a demo that's done. They're just lost, and you really have to have that all together and know exactly what's getting it. Just at least have that situation in place.
It's true. So we could go on and on and on about this forever. We are now at the Q&A section of our our panel discussion. Warren, before I ask the first question, do you want to say one little tiny piece of advice?
Sure. Yeah, I would just say, on top of the great points by Adaline and Steve, to just do your research. Mike Jansen, a good friend at Greater Good, was on a panel yesterday and mentioned he gets a lot of emails that say, "Hey, Greater Good," like rather than, "Hey, Mike." For example, just know who you're reaching out to. If you can find out, if you can follow them on Instagram, or figure out who they are, what they like. Just kind of don't just kind of throw things around at everybody and do it multiple times. Follow up here and there, but not maybe the day after. But the main thing I would say is, we get this question a lot, Christine. You must hear this, like, what kind of music do you need right now?
I know.
I would say I need music that sounds like you. Like, I don't really want to hear you copying a trend, because when people make something great, it starts a trend. So I mean, literally, just I find when somebody is unexcusably themselves, it always comes out well, to some degree. So
yeah, be authentic. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a great panel so far. So let's get into some Q&A. Everybody is putting their questions in the little box that says Q&A down on the bottom, at the bottom right. So I'm going to read the first question. And this is for everyone, Warren and Steve. So maybe Steve, you might want to answer this first. How is COVID-19 affecting the advertising business from your vantage point right now? Are you seeing more demand for lower budget songs from indie artists? Actually, Warren, that should really go to you.
Right.
At first, I was licensing way more like stock music, library music, production music than I usually would, just because low budgets, the uncertainty in the beginning of everything. And we all saw those first few COVID commercials that came out that were, the sad piano and we're here for you. Anything you need, just let us know, that kind of vibe. But I think that budgets, nobody was able to shoot anything. So production schedules for shooting commercial shows, films, everything got stopped. And yeah, it was, we're all facing unique challenges with it, but it's slowly starting to pick up again. Like, I'm kind of as busy as I would normally be around this time of year now.
Yeah,
but definitely not in the beginning.
Yeah, things are slowly picking up. You're right that the budgets are much lower though. So, which I'm finding. Okay, well, sorry, Steve, I'll find a question for you.
Okay.
Question number 2 is for Adaline. Did you have to join ACTRA to sing for production houses?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually just typed the answer to someone because I wasn't sure if we would get to it. You do. So, but you don't have to worry about that, because if you get an ad, you will do a contract through ACTRA where you give them some money, of course, and then you start accruing credits. And then once you have a certain amount of credits, I think it's 3, like as a solo singer, once you have 3 commercials, then you become a full member. Yes, what someone's saying, you buy a permit. So you don't have to worry about ACTRA. That's something that will come once you land the commercial. You can't just get into it. You have to earn your way into it.
Yeah, and hopefully the client pays for your permit. They don't always pay for a permit.
I was like, I don't think I paid for my permit.
You've been lucky if clients have been paying for it.
No, I paid for them on my own.
Oh, you've been paying for them. And here's the thing too, is sometimes if you want to stay non-union, you can just continue on just getting permits. But it is true that after, I think it is 4 permits that you become a full member. Okay.
It's great because then you get benefits. Musicians, you get benefits.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's a big deal.
And you know what, also on the ACTRA front, if you're just a musician, for example, I've played bass. Bass is my main instrument. And I've been playing on a lot of commercials over the years that come through Pirate, because as Steve was mentioning, some person will make their track in their room, usually all on their own, or with a partner. And sometimes the ad agencies will want to record live drums and live bass just to kind of give it a bit more life. So anytime I play bass on a commercial, I get paid through the AFM, which is the American Federation of Musicians, technically the CFM for Canada. But that's a good thing to join as well.
Yeah, that is a good thing to join. Okay, I have a question for you, Steve. Okay, let me see if I can read this. When first getting into composing for sync licensing, working with various artists and music supervisors for the first time, how was the experience breaking into that world? And what or who would you recommend another producer possibly associate themselves with? Or how would you recommend going about breaking into that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, to read that. Well, getting into it, I mean, I came in as an engineer, so I kind of started from that. I always was a musician and doing those things, but I had come being an engineer and building up from that. But for someone that you need to connect with, is that the question? Like who to talk to?
Yeah, it looks like they basically want to know who and how you break into our world and who they should talk to.
Oh, well, for us, it's talking to like audio directors. So, you know, the guys, emailing the guys at Pirate and talking to Chris Tace or Eamon Cineravania, or even with us, connecting with us and sending a reel. If you've got things together, like as a composer, and you want to say, this is the stuff I've done, these are the areas, this is the style of music that I'm comfortable with. We do a lot of, we write in-house a lot, but we do have satellite writers that we work with if it's something very specific, like an orchestral score, or even singer-songwriter sort of things, where it's not, you know, you're not going to be asked to do this big Danny Elfman score, but I sing and play guitar, and I do this sort of, you know, you want it to sound like a song that's been, you know, off a record that's going to be, you know, working for this piece. So you have a good variety of people that we can call on at different times for those kind of relationships of what we want to put together. So sort of being honest with that, there are guys that we work with that have master's degree in music, and I can call them in the morning, you know, and give them an oompa band, and they'll do that. And then you got to make it sound like Radiohead for this one, and and they can jump through and do all those things. Great. They don't necessarily have the authenticity of our singer-songwriter, so sometimes being able to go to that is where you want to be. But the guys with the multi-instrumentalists are going to, because you never know what brief is going to come across your desk. They're going to get called more often because they have more lines in the water. If you're just a singer-songwriter, you know, you're going to have to get more. But anyway, just having your demo reel together and showing what area that you're comfortable with and sending that off, and you know, you're going to get a relationship. At least it's somewhat of saying, this is good, bad, it's worthwhile to add to our roster of people that we'll call upon.
Yeah, I wanted to jump on that for a second, because in my world of writing, like on top of, like, there's so many different ways you can do this. You can, you know, license music, you can sing for ads, you can do composing. And then, like Steve was saying, I get calls sometime. I had a call a couple months ago because this music house was doing like a Billie Eilish kind of vibe, and all their composers are like 45-year-old men. They're like, please, like they were like trying to write these like sassy little Billie Eilish songs, and they were like, please, can you please do it? Like, it's just, I think knowing, yeah, Steve knows when to reach out to songwriters based on what his composer's strengths are.
I don't know why I have bad guys in my head now. Okay.
I just saw a great question from fellow music supervisor Tammy Egan.
Oh, Tammy, we have to hear this question.
She just said, how do you deal with clients that reject pitch after pitch music?
Oh my God.
Alcohol? To some degree. Yeah.
So I've only done this once. Yes, alcohol, definitely. I've only done this once where a client we were doing pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch, and it just got ridiculous. And it finally got to a point where I just said, you have to go somewhere else. We clearly have different tastes. So you get burnt out, they get burnt out, and sometimes, you know, they'll need fresh ears. But, you know, for the most part, I can usually solve it within, I have done 8 or 9 pitches, and we finally went back to the first pitch, and Oh, okay, we had it. And it's sometimes it's a simple fact of clients just not trusting their judgment, knowing that it's already there, but they just want to hear more and be 100% sure. So sometimes you have to, do a few more rounds and then steer them back to what you already have. And if that doesn't work, do the worst case scenario, which I did only once in my career, is fire myself off the job. Hopefully that helped you, Tammy.
There you go.
One other good thing is to sometimes get someone else in on the job, like
Right. That's
another authority, so to speak, that can guide them, I was having trouble on a Mazda job one time, and it was the very same scenario that you mentioned, Christine. We went 7 rounds at least, and we licensed something from the first round. So, but all it took was Chris Tate coming in, one of my bosses and partners, just to say, hey guys, like, this is really good from round 1. Why don't we try this? And they were like, oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Do you know what it's like, Warren? It's like when women go shopping for wedding dresses. I think that a good music, and I've been in these sessions where, I'm singing, and a really talented director is able to sort of be like a bridal consultant. Like, this one was really nice.
That looks really good.
It's not necessarily the 70th dress you try on. Sometimes it's the first.
It's the first. Sometimes it is. So on that note, we are being nudged to wrap it up. I think we need to do a part 2, or maybe we should just hang out together and chat. I want to thank everyone for joining. This is a reminder to send your donations to either Black Youth Helpline or Black Mental Health. The links will be shared again in the chat. So hopefully you'll see that there. And I also would like to encourage everyone to stick around, because there's a great panel after this. They are, who is it? Kaya Pino, and how do you say Havaya Mighty?
Havaya Mighty.
There you go.
Havaya.
There you go. Hello. And the advertising team. So the panel is called Here's the Brief, Breaking Down the DoorDash ad. So please stick around for that. And I see that Dondrea has joined us.
Hi, Dondrea.
Hi, friends. Thanks so much for doing this. I was just going to thank you so much. And yes, follow what Christine was saying. Please stick around for this wicked panel. I don't think we've ever had, I've never seen a panel where we've had the advertising team, as well as the music supervisor, as well as the artist. So this is a super, super rare, special moment that we have. So thank you for tuning in on day 3. Stay tuned to the next panel. And thank you to everyone on this panel.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.